to serve him, heavenly King of glory, chosen heir to witness for his name.
Should we like say a prayer?
Open it! Open it!
Talk about it. It's opening! You have to find the right paper.
Really loud.
Okay. Talk really cool. Okay. I'm gonna pass that. Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
If you say okay again, I'm going to come over and kick you.
Sister Willis, you are hereby called to serve as a missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Whoa! Oh my gosh. You are assigned away from Utah, Salt Lake City to Salt Lake.
I never once thought about serving a mission. The women in my family tended to marry very young, and that's just what I always thought would happen. I attended BYU, Idaho, and while I was out there, I got engaged and I was looking to get married. But looking back, a lot of my roommates were either return missionaries or preparing to serve missions, so maybe the Lord was kind of preparing me to think that way. Anyway, we broke off the engagement just a few weeks before I graduated with my bachelor's degree in English literature, and I came home. I had nothing planned. It was probably the first time in my whole life that I didn't know what was coming next. I moved in with my grandma, and I just completely felt lost. I remember one day I was completely in despair, and my grandma looked at me and asked, "Have you ever thought about serving a mission?" The moment she asked, and I know this sounds cliche, but as soon as she asked, a light bulb went on in my mind. I could serve a mission. I immediately started my mission papers, and I remember getting really frustrated with how long everything was taking. I got a job and saved up what little I could and finished all the physicals and appointments and everything, and I finally got my papers turned in the day before the October 2012 General Conference where President Monson announced the age change for missionaries. And I remember my sister texting me during the session, and she was like asking me how to finish her papers or start her papers, and it was just really fun to get to do that with her. Those 4 weeks of waiting for my mission call were agonizing. I remember praying and asking the Lord to send me foreign or to send me to Salt Lake, and He did. He sent me to the Salt Lake City South mission, which is coincidentally the same mission that my dad went on when he was a young man, and he even served for 18 months, so that's kind of neat. So our calls look almost identical. I got my call on October 30th, 2012, and I actually got it several days before, but I wanted my family to be there, so I waited to open it. I went through the temple for the first time on November 7th, 2012, and my parents and my grandma were able to come, and even my little sister came, even though she had to wait in the car the whole time. But it was an amazing day. I know this is kind of off topic, but I grew up hearing about how wonderful the temple was, and when I finally got there, I remember thinking, this is far better than what they made it out to be, and I'm not sure that anyone can really prepare you for how amazing the temple is, but it's truly the house of the Lord. I arrived at the MDC on December 19th, 2012, and my companion was Sister Summer Hayes, and we had one of the best districts ever, in my opinion. And this picture here is a picture of some of the other sisters in our zone, and the girl in the front in the gray jacket is Sister Seaman, and she became Jessica's trainer in the South Carolina mission, so that's kind of neat that I already knew who she was. I took a lot of video in the MTC, and I'm going to serenade you for a few minutes on how hilarious my district is. So, yeah.
It does take a little work.
When you first start out,
You go to the fort by the Golden Gate Bridge.
It is January 17th, 2013. Sister Willis is about to try to break an apple on her finger.
Just pound it really hard.
The most intense moment of her life. Okay, ready?
And I just hit it really hard.
Hit it really hard.
I'm gonna break my finger. Can I do it again?
Oh, you did it! Ta-da!
It didn't really break in half, but it's broken.
It broke. You can still eat it now.
You do yours.
Congratulations.
Wait, let me pick up the...
Did it hurt?
No, it didn't hurt at all. Maybe the first time when I missed.
Okay, well mine is a little off balance. There we go. Did you just do it?
Yeah, fist, whole fist.
And I'm not sure what happened to the end of that video, but it was hilarious and she did break the apple. But anyway, we were there for 5 weeks. Normally I think the time would have been 3 weeks, but we were there during Christmas and New Year, so that set us back a week. And Sister Summaries and I had extra training to do. On our mission call, it said that we would be serving under a visitor center director, and I had no idea what that meant at the time, but I found out later that there is actually a visitor center in Park City, Utah, and then I would at some point be serving my mission there. And so we had an extra week of training, and we were trained to do Mormon.org chat and how to answer calls as far as teaching people the gospel, and we learned how to give tours, so to speak, and how to teach the gospel through those visual aids. And we spent a couple days training on Temple Square, and that was really fun. We could just be there and help people. We got to the mission field on January 23rd, 2013, and that was probably one of the most terrifying days of my life. But my mission president was Bruce and Elaine Miller, and one of the things that he liked to do, or he did, was he had each of us carry a little rock around to remind us to be a little bolder and to help us, encourage us to talk to everyone and invite everyone to hear the gospel. My trainer was Sister Fulbright, and she was awesome, as demonstrated in this video.
This is Sister Fulbright. She's going to do an elephant impression.
She was amazing, and she taught me everything, and she was very much all about exact obedience, and so it was very easy, or I don't know, it was just so good learning from her. So one evening, Sister Fulbright and I came home to our apartment, and we got a phone call, and it was from this guy who was part of this news group for the KSL in Utah, and he asked us if he could film us for a segment that they were going to air on TV, and we were like, I don't think this is allowed. And so we called our mission president, and he was like, yeah, I already know, it's okay, you guys can do it. And so they filmed us, and this segment was aired between the conference sessions in April of 2013. And so I'm going to show the clip. It's kind of long, but I'm just going to show you what was in there.
Elder Holland and Elder Nelson want young church members to understand that service, as challenging as it is for missionaries, brings strength and knowledge and blessings to their lives.
We see this as a way of getting better marriages, better families, better Latter-day Saints, long range. And they will become mothers, they will become fathers, they will become grandparents, and they will be rooted in the doctrine of the Lord Jesus Christ. And what a wonderful background that is for marriage, parenthood, career. It will be a stronger society because of this change.
Sister Kristen Fulbright from Redmond, Washington, and Sister Julia Willis from Joplin, Missouri are serving their missions in the Salt Lake Valley. On this day, Tiffany Ellis joins them. Future missionaries sometimes follow in the footsteps of those assigned to their area as they go door to door talking about the restored gospel.
I feel so blessed to be a missionary right now. It's so cool to be able to see the differences between being a missionary before the age change and now seeing all these new girls come in, or the excitement of these new girls?
I think part of it is just that everyone around these ages are excited for missionary work now. That's what they're thinking about, and that's what they're preparing for. This generation coming up is, I think, far more prepared than I was.
Even before the announcement, Tiffany had a feeling she would be serving before age 21. She's learned so much from the sister missionaries.
It's just an amazing experience to be able to see the influence that the gospel has in people's lives, and just I could see the difference that it made.
When she is not working with the sister missionaries, Tiffany is practicing her Polish, one of the most challenging languages.
So yeah, there it is. Kind of embarrassing, but the stakes saw it and they loved it and kind of felt like celebrities for a second. But anyway, we didn't have any baptisms during that transfer, but I think those are the most, like I grew the most during those 2 transfers. And then it was time to go. I got transferred up to the Park City Family Tree Center, the visitor center up there, and this is the center. These are the pictures of the center. It's really pretty, and I learned that President Hinckley, during, I think it's the 2001 Olympics, he wanted the church to have some kind of representation there, and so he had this built, and so it's kind of neat. And people came in a lot, and non-members especially. They came in and wanted to find out where they're from and where their ancestry is from. So these are the visitor center directors, Ron and Shirley German, and they were just so amazing and just perfect. And this is Sister Marlo, my companion, and we lived in a barn at the time, and the members owned the house next to it, and they made this little space for missionaries, and you had to use a ladder to get to the loft where the beds were, and it was just a lot of fun.
Okay, this is my companion, Sister Marlo, and it's just before Mother's Day. She's going to run through it.
He almost knocked her down. He almost like tackled her.
I remember one day one of the sisters in my district said that there was an old man that had come into the center looking for me, and I was so confused because I had no idea who it would be. And he came in later, and I found out that he was one of the missionaries who served in Cape Town, South Africa, and he and his companion taught and baptized my grandparents, and they were the ones who were like, you should move to Zion, move to Utah, move to Salt Lake, and so they did. They packed up their family, their little daughter, and they moved to Salt Lake, and so that's one of the reasons why my family's here, why I'm here on my mission.
We're good. Okay, show us how it's done.
Live from Park City, Utah. This is the country. Woo! I don't know. Go, Marlo, go! 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 Oh! Are you recording or taking a picture?
I'm recording.
While I was serving up in Park City, the mission split, and we became part of the East Mission, and we got new mission presidents. Their names are John and Sandra Eberhard, and they were really wonderful people, and it was a very interesting transition to blend the 2 missions together. There was a family who lived right at the end of our driveway in Park City, and we learned that they were the Pretners, and the mother was not active in church, and her girls hadn't been baptized yet. And so I remember bringing it up to my previous companion about maybe teaching them, and I think every sister was like, no, they're not ready, they've already been contacted, just don't even bother. But then when I got my new companion, I decided to ask them to just see if they'd be willing to take the discussions again. And so I went up to them, and I remember their older daughter was in the yard with a water hose. I don't know what she was doing, but I asked her, I said, would you be interested in learning from the missionaries again? And she was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then, so we started teaching her and their mom. And I just remember that it was just so spiritual, and their family just sort of became like our second family, and we went over there a lot. And the girls, we taught them the discussions, and they were just they just listened, and they just seemed to go really well. And then the young women, they just sort of integrated them into everything, and they'd come over all the time. And I remember whenever we were going over the baptismal questions to see if they were prepared, I remember asking them if they believe that Joseph Smith is the prophet. And the oldest daughter, they just said yes. And I was like, how can they know this? They're 15 and 14 years old, and I wasn't sure if they're getting baptized for the right reasons. And the older daughter, she just looked at me and she said, I know because I've prayed about it, and I know that it's true. And I was just so impressed by her because this young girl who was, just a little bit older than Joseph Smith was at the time, had prayed and found out truth, and it was just so impressive to me. And so I just love that story. And these girls got baptized, and the whole ward, it seemed like, showed up, and we had to have the meeting in the chapel, and it was so good. And that was just one of my favorite families or experiences on my mission. Another story on my mission was about a man named James. And I guess on your mission you have cell phones, and you can get what's called a media referral, where this person goes on to Mormon.org and they say they're interested in either sending a Book of Mormon to someone or in receiving Book of Mormon or missionaries or whatever. And so this man had got on the computer, and he just said, I'm interested in getting the discussions. And so it was like really easy, like showed up on our phone, and we're like, oh, this guy wants to meet with us. So like the next day or whatever, we met with him at the church, and he was just like super prepared. Like as we were pulling up to the church building, he was standing there with his Book of Mormon waiting for us. And it was just so fun teaching him. He was just so ready, and so like he knew everything already. Like I remember one time we were teaching him, and he was like, yeah, I started reading that book about everything. And we're like, you started Preach My Gospel? And he was like, yeah, that one big manual. And we're like, okay, that's cool. And then he's like, yeah, and I started watching this show. It's about like the missionaries, and it's called like the stake or the ward. And we're like, the district? He's like, yeah, that one. And so like he was like doing everything that we were already doing. Like it was just so funny, and he was just so prepared. And like his baptism was so good. I was transferred out of the area at the time, but I was able to go down and be there for him and for that. And so that was really fun.
You got it, Willis. Just stand up on the wood and then sit. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
You got it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the time.
Woo! Don't get in the water.
I guess this is more as a side note, but I just wanted to put it in here to remember. When I was still part of the Salt Lake City South mission, our mission president had Elder Quentin L. Cook come and his wife, and they spoke to us, and that was really fun, and we got to meet him afterwards. And then later they had Elder Holland come and speak to our mission, and that was really fun too. And his words are so powerful to me. And then later in the East mission, my mission presidents invited Elder L. Tom Perry to come and eat dinner with us and to speak to us afterwards, and that was really fun too. And I think seeing Elder Perry, he's so tall and he seems so intimidating, but meeting him there was so fun. He's just like this giant teddy bear, and it was just really fun, really neat to meet all these church leaders, because I think a lot of other missions get to experience that too, but I think because we're in Salt Lake, we just maybe are more blessed than others. But anyway, that was really fun. I think it was halfway through my mission where I went to the transfer meetings and I knew that Elder Clayburgh was coming. My stepmom had emailed me his mission call when he was on track, and so I already knew he was heading this way, and so I remember sitting there in the chapel just watching for all these new missionaries coming in, and when we saw each other, like, I started making faces at him, and it was kind of funny, and then all the new missionaries were invited up on the stand, and one by one they gave their testimony, and Scotty gave a really strong testimony, and I just remember thinking that I was so proud of him, and he was just going to be a good church leader and a good missionary. And anyway, afterwards the mission president invited the new missionaries to go and sit with their mission, and he got down off the stand, and I was sitting in the front row, and I just forgot what was happening around me, but I jumped up and I threw my arms around him and I hugged him, and it was so fun. And all the missionaries behind us were like, ooh, and Scotty let go of me really fast, and he's like, she's my cousin, it's okay. It was just really funny. And anyway, so it was fun to see him throughout the mission, and to like kind of touch base later, or to serve in the same areas as him, and so anyway, that was really fun. So at that transfer meeting, I was transferred up from Utah to Wyoming to a little town called Green River, and we were whitewashing the area, which means that they had pulled elders out and they put sisters there for the first time, and the whole stake was telling us the whole time that they'd never had sisters there before, that it had been like 20 years since then, and it was so exciting, and I think we had like 50 referrals that first week, and we were like super busy, and we just had to make a new area book because there wasn't anything there, and so it was a lot of fun to get to do that in Green River. The Vicentes were another family that we really connected with. Their daughter, Delana, was young and her family wasn't active, and she hadn't been baptized yet, so we started teaching them and helping them come back to church. And Delana is just so intelligent. She just caught on really quickly and understood everything that we were saying. And I remember after we had taught her and after she'd gotten baptized, she was teaching her cousin. We were teaching her cousin, and she was like taking over the lesson. She was like telling about the plan of salvation and about baptism and everything. It was just so neat to see that, and I still think she'd be an amazing missionary. This picture was taken 2 months after my mission. I was able to come back with Sister Summerhays and visit the mission, and I'm including this in here. It's kind of random, but I'm including it in here because in the White Handbook there's a section that I've always loved, and it says, "When you go home, do not forget those you have taught. At all times live worthy of their trust. Write them occasionally and encourage them to be faithful." And I just think that's really important as missionaries, is to just don't forget the people you've taught. Don't just move on with your life. Like, hold on to these people who've changed your life and whose lives you've changed. So serving in Wyoming, I told my family the address of the members that we were living with, and so I guess it shouldn't have surprised me, but one day my companion and I came back home from working, and we walked into the door, and the sister that we were living with, she looked at me and she was like, "Sister Willis, come here." And I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble, like, I don't know what I did, but I couldn't see the room. But when I turned the corner and got into the living room, I saw my brother sitting on the couch with his wife, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? But anyway, it was really fun to see them and touch base. They didn't stay for very long, and it was kind of innocent because I didn't know what was happening, so I didn't feel that bad. But anyway, so yeah, it was kind of fun. So my companion and I had a lot of success in Wyoming. There was a lot of new people to teach and people that had been taught before that wanted to learn again, and she was the sweetest companion. Seriously, like, I've never met anyone as sweet as her. But for some reason, while I was serving in Wyoming, I was struggling. It just felt like there was this darkness or this weight on me. I don't really know how else to describe it. But I I couldn't sleep well, and I couldn't eat well, and I started losing a lot of weight, and I was doing everything that I was supposed to. I was reading my scriptures and praying and trying to be as obedient as I could, but I just couldn't shake this feeling. So I called our mission mom one day, and I was explaining to her how I was feeling and what was happening, and was thinking that maybe I was suffering from depression, and she decided that the best thing for me was to send me back down to the valley so that I can start seeing a counselor and getting medication and things like that. So that was really rough, but it was neat to see later how the Lord's hand was in my life. I think at that point, having my sister out on her mission at the same time as me was one of the key factors that kept me going, and just knowing that she was out there and she was serving, and I could do the same thing. I could push through and keep going. And so she was just, I don't think she realizes how important she was to my mission. But anyway, so halfway through the transfer, they moved me down to the valley, and I was put with one of my friends, Sister Wall, to see if maybe that would help. And it was so fun being with her. She's just such a happy person. And I started seeing a counselor pretty regularly, and I got some medication. But I think the main thing that helped at that point was teaching Jordan. The first day that I got into the new area, we got a text from one of the sisters. Her name was Kristen, and she said that her boyfriend Jordan was interested in taking the discussions. So we started meeting with them, and we taught them that whole transfer, and we were able to take them to Temple Square, which is one of the unique opportunities of serving in Salt Lake. So that was pretty exciting. But the whole time we were teaching him, the Spirit just resonated, and they're just such an amazing couple. And she comes from an active family, and I think her dad is the bishop in a ward or something. And anyway, there were several times where they had their family there, and it was so fun seeing how spiritual they were and how supportive they were of him and of them. And a week before his baptism date, I was transferred out of the area. There was no way that I was going to miss that, so I got special permission to go back down and to watch him take that step, and it was amazing to see that. And Sister Wall was even able to come back to the baptism, even though she'd finished her mission, the transfer before. But I remember standing there at the baptism, and Kristen came up to me, and she gave me a hug, and she told me how happy she was that I was able to be there. And she said that Jordan had told her that I was his favorite missionary, and he was sad to see me transferred. And I'm not saying this to brag, it just felt like the Lord was very aware of where I was and what I was dealing with, and he put me in a place where I could still be useful, even though I felt so broken. Jordan and Kristen have since been married, and we still keep in touch, and they've started a family of their own, and I'm hoping to someday be able to go back and see them again. This is another side note, but during my last transfer for General Conference, my cousin Nancy Ann texted me or emailed me, and she was saying that she was going to be there and that we should see each other there. And so this one wasn't very innocent, but I was able to see a lot of my cousins there at the session, and we just said hi briefly, and then we went about our way, and so that was kind of fun. I want to end this little video segment with the last email that I sent home, and it was the day before I left my mission, and I'll just read a little bit of what it says. My mission means the world to me. I cannot imagine ever not serving a mission. Among so many things, it has taught me that the most important thing in this world is the gospel of Jesus Christ, that families are the most important social unit in time and through the eternities, and that the companionship of the Holy Ghost is something we must always strive to have with us. I want you to know that I am not ending my mission. I am simply getting transferred to my home ward in Missouri. My name tag will be removed tomorrow as the sun goes down, but I will not stop being a missionary. I will no longer have the mantle of a missionary, but I will always have the calling to be a missionary. I, like all of you, have been called by a prophet to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that is a calling that will never go away. We had the wonderful opportunity to go to the temple on Friday with all the departing missionaries. I had very mixed emotions as we spent a few hours in the Draper Temple. I remember sitting in the creation room, looking at the beautiful paintings on the walls and thinking that this was home. all the majestic mountains and the striking blue skies, and then I remembered that it was Utah. Utah has become my home. It has become my place of growth, my place of learning, my place of conversion. But I have been called a different way. Coming home from my mission was very hard, and seeing everyone at the airport, it hurt my heart because I was done. I was not a missionary anymore, and I remember my little brother Joseph asking me, he says, are you crying because you're happy to see us, or are you crying because you're sad? And I didn't know what to tell him because I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to be back on my mission. I know this church is true. I know that Joseph Smith restored the gospel of Jesus Christ upon the earth. I know that the Book of Mormon is true. I have read it many times, and each time I get the same message. You are not alone. Our Father in heaven has not forgotten you. I know without a doubt that Jesus is our Savior. He is the only way back to our Father in heaven. I testify that this is true, and I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.